So what actually happens to a founder's brain under we get, or not only founders, a human brain under we get under a chronic stress?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think I love talking about this just because I've experienced it so many times, and
Mm-hmm.
I can experience it if I'm not careful. I have ADHD, and my brain does not stop thinking. Like when I tell you my brain does not stop thinking, I wish I had like a button that I could turn off and then just like, oh, peace, and I need to make such an effort. So for any founder who has a neurodiverse brain, do not fear. There is so much hope and your brain is amazing. So, but what I do want to say when it comes to chronic stress and burnout, essentially what happens in founders' minds is that your brain has, what's called the prefrontal cortex. That's the more logical, rational, sort of a strategic part of our brain that comes live on a regular basis. It makes decisions. If you're going to cross the road, it might just make sure that you're looking at the traffic lights, all those things. When it's under such huge amount of stress, and sometimes this stress might not be felt in the day to day, we're very good. Founders are very good at pushing through, aren't we? We sometimes need a little bit of someone to tell us, hey, I'm noticing that you are not sleeping well, or you're just a little bit more, on the edge. Sometimes we're very good at pushing through. So from a neuroscience perspective, what happens is that the prefrontal cortex goes offline, and the amygdala, which is the more primitive part of your brain, comes on. And what the amygdala does is that really look at the danger, making sure that it's almost kind of this fight or flight response. And that's when systematically the body becomes really, really tired. The nervous system is just constantly dysregulated. And then you just then start experiencing burnout. And burnout can feel very different for many people. For me, burnout can feel like a disconnection to the work that I'm doing. So that's how my nervous system sort of talks to me when I'm burnout. Burnout for some people can be actually overworking and just still feeling really exhausted, and there is no way for you to top up almost like your battery levels. So it is really important when we think about how cortisol, which is the stress hormone that is in our systems on a regular basis, and how the amygdala takes over. The cortisol kind of goes up, and our prefrontal cortex is almost like not in charge anymore. That's when burnout can really take over our lives if we don't manage it well.
What do we do then? Like, do we need to quit everything and then do nothing, or how to navigate?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like to think that burnout can be prevented, but I also think that life is not constantly linear, and especially when we look at founders' journeys, where sometimes you got a really quiet period and that feels great. Then there is another period that might feel like a sprint, and then you need to work for what I call like the baseline of a founder. The baseline of a founder for me is your mental health, your nervous system regulation, the food that you eat, and most importantly, your sleep. We have moved more into a wellness era, I think, over the last few years in entrepreneurship. But I remember when I started my first business in 2015, 2016, it was this hustle culture. And it's changed significantly, but still there is a very, very heavy demand on, I find, and I speak for myself and for a lot of the female founders that I come across and I can work with through my business, is that there is this constant need of proving yourself. Sadly, it is a reality for a lot of female founders, not for all, but for founders in general, there is a constant need of trying to do the next thing. So really, sometimes we just got to really start learning strategies to have that baseline in place. It's almost when you go to the doctor and you're not very well, and the doctor gives you a bit of a prescription. The prescription that I always give founders or women or male founders that are talking to me is, how's your sleep? How is your nutrition? What are you not doing on a regular basis? And those two things by themselves would create a really big impact. And we could talk about more of the nitty-gritty details, but I know we talk a lot about wellness and longevity centers, and founders can, those ones are really in a good position to spend the cash. They can feel amazing, but they will not change your day-to-day life. And that's the responsibility of the founder, no one else.